Details of heavy police deployment to the campus in a desperate attempt to avert a reprisal. Also, pregnant mother and 2 children die in fire at Urim. We'll take you live to the scene.
But upon fighting the fire, they were informed, or they realized that a mother and 2 children had perished. So we quickly also have to call the police.
Also in this package, government absorbs loans and grants lent to the utility companies, a key factor that influenced the tariff adjustment. But how sustainable is this?
Now, the on-lend loans, government said it doesn't expect them to pay back the on-lend loans. So we took that one out as well. Government is 100% shareholding of the companies. And government said the dividend that you pay to me, keep the dividend as well. So that portion as well, we did not pass through the tariff.
Will peruse the debt levels as the Ghana Statistical Service warns the tariff increase will push inflation up. Later in the bulletin, former gender minister says the decision by the president to remove her from office will afford her the opportunity to focus on the parliamentary duties. We have details of her response to the president nearly 4 weeks after that public announcement coming up in sports.
Well, former Black Stars general captain Asamoah Gyan wants to set history right versus Uruguay at the 2022 World Cup. We'll bring you details in 20 minutes.
And later in the bulletin, a song to keep you motivated in the face of tough economic conditions.
People are really going through it. So this is a song that says shedding type of thing. It just gives you hope that you will make that money. Just keep going.
Make you no worry about the things you know we change, the things you know we do today. You go do.
It's all about the winner song by musician Miss V. We have details of these and more in this half-hour package. Stay with us. Thanks for choosing us. This is the home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. I am Ernest. Manu. The details now. Sounds of angry residents of Commonwealth Hall at the University of Ghana who are this afternoon protesting management's decision to suspend 2 top officials of the hall, the hall master and the hall tutor. The decision was part of a raft of sanctions by the governing council after violent clashes between the residents of Commonwealth and Mensa Sabah halls left many students injured and properties destroyed. We'll take you to the campus shortly live, but first, my colleague Manu joins me in the studio with details of a statement released by the school Monday night. Manu, first, what are the key issues in the statement?
So, and as this particular statement is a result of investigations, commissioned into this particular incident. Well, part of the key highlights says the composition of Commonwealth and Mensa Sabah halls should be reviewed. Management of the 2 affected halls are to be held accountable for their actions and inactions for the persistent riots. The hall master and senior tutor of Commonwealth have not exhibited sufficient willingness and ability to hold students of the hall accountable for their actions in the recent violent clashes. These officers should therefore, in the interim, be relieved of their duties while management works with the security services to investigate the clashes and work towards finding lasting solutions to the tensions between the 2 halls.
So those are the details, but there are sanctions for some of the officials there. What are they?
So, indeed, Ernest, Commonwealth Hall is to be surcharged with the cost of damages to property in the vicinity of Mensa Sabah Hall in the recent clashes. The junior common room, that's JCR presidents of both Commonwealth Hall and Mensa Sabah Hall, should be referred to the disciplinary committee for junior members for their actions and inactions leading to and after the riots.
Thank you very much. That's my colleague Manu with details of a statement issued by management of the University of Ghana. Now, some of the residents of Commonwealth have this afternoon converged in front of the hall, chanting and demanding the reversal of the decision. My colleague Kweku Asante is there for us. He joins us on the line. Kweku, first of all, describe to us the atmosphere on campus.
So, Ernest, it's a charged atmosphere. There are a number of police officials who are also on campus trying to avert any clash. I've been speaking to some residents of Commonwealth who are telling me that the decision to suspend their hall master and their senior tutor is arbitrary and should not hold.
The school management isn't being fair with Commonwealth Hall in the sense that they released a communique that University Council decision on clashes between students of Commonwealth Hall and Mensa Sabah Hall. Yet you've been able to pass judgment. This is not done anywhere. The composition of Commonwealth Hall and Mensa Sabah should be reviewed. Mensa Sabah Hall is already a mixed hall. So what are you telling us? it means you are directly saying that Commonwealth Hall composition is going to be reviewed. In what sense? Going to make sense to make sure no, they lie bad. That is why it makes no sense. That's why it is ludicrous. I have not been part of the violence, and so why am I being surcharged? For what reason? What situation? Or what are some of the evidence that points to the fact that violence has been sanctioned by Commonwealth Hall? Now, you sanctioning or relieving the Hall Master and Hall Tutor from, have they sanctioned any violence?
And for sanity to prevail and for peace to come back to this, I think the right thing must be done. They have to recant the decision that they have taken by recalling our Hall Master and our Hall Tutor back to their post.
We are not going to sit down and allow management to pass a biased judgment. We as vendors are out to express our total discretion on what management is saying.
From the cameras and from all the except that they have, I don't think they have been able to point to even extrapolate a scintilla of evidence against any vendor. So why should they come to this hasty conclusion?
So those are some students of the Commonwealth Hall, residents of the hall, I should say. Let's go live to the university again and speak to the Pro-Vice Chancellor in charge of Academic and Student Affairs, Professor Gordon Awandari. We're grateful that you could join us here on the Midday News. First of all, let's start with the concerns of bias raised by the residents, especially when this decision is based on preliminary investigations.
Good afternoon, Ernest. First, let me explain how a university council is constituted. The university council is made of 20 eminent Ghanaians who have been appointed by government and other stakeholders of the university. It may interest you to know that the Council of the University of Ghana is chaired by a former Chief Justice. So these decisions were not taken arbitrarily. It is based on the facts that were put before the council. And the council of 20 or so eminent people. You can go to the university website and look at the composition of the university council.
So you talk about the facts, and we acknowledge that we have very prominent people on the university council, and we assume that they will definitely make decisions in the best interest of the university. But you talk about the facts. What are the facts which led to the suspension of the hall officials?
I think it's clear in the letter from the registrar that they have not exhibited sufficient willingness to cooperate with the investigation and to hold their students accountable.
What exactly does that mean? Is it that you have established that indeed there are residents of the hall that are culpable for this action and the hall tutors are adamant in releasing them?
Well, everybody knows that the students who went to Sabah Hall and engaged in a clash moved back into Commonwealth Hall, holding the back of Mensa Sabah. And the hall authorities have no idea that this happened. Does that demonstrate confidence that they are in control of the hall?
That is not exactly to mean that they are not ready to release some students of the hall, which your statement cites.
No, I'm just asking you, is that evidence of being in control of the hall and being able to help facilitate the process of identifying the culprit?
But that is not the grounds for which you have removed them, according to your statement. Your statement says they are not ready to release some of the students to be held accountable for this action.
Which statement are you reading?
A statement we have from the university's director.
Please read it well. It doesn't say so.
Well, we are going to get those portions for you, but there are other issues that the students raise, and my producer is releasing those portions for me, and I'm going to read them to you. But there are other issues that the students raised, which talks about the recomposition of the hall. Is that to suggest that you're going to make Commonwealth Hall a mixed hall? That is what the students want to know.
We haven't decided that yet, but council is very clear that the students who are in the hall, there are troublemakers in there, and we need to deal with that.
Back to the statement. Point 7 says the hall master and senior tutor of Commonwealth Hall have not exhibited sufficient willingness and ability to hold students of the hall accountable for their actions. This is the premise for the question I asked. It is one thing to say that they do not have sufficient information about the actions of the students and to bring them into control. It's another thing to say that they are unwilling to release them for some action, for some punitive measure. So, which exactly?
You are not reading the statement. You are using your own words. That's not what it said. If we are saying that they are not willing to hold their students accountable, we are not saying they are not releasing them. They are two different things. If a hall cannot admit that their students did anything, how do you even proceed to find the students?
But what reasons were given by the hall tutors for their lack of willingness to release the students?
Again, I didn't say they were not willing to release. That's not what the statement says.
To cooperate with the investigations.
Correct. It is lack of cooperation. And if we are going to proceed with the investigation, we need the hall authorities to cooperate. So if hall authorities are not cooperating, we are saying that simply give the opportunity for others to come so that they can cooperate with the investigation.
When you say cooperation, how exactly do you mean? What do you expect of them?
I'm just giving you examples, Ernest. First of all, the students went into the hall after the class. And that mere fact is not being acknowledged. So how do you proceed?
Issues of security on campus has become quite topical following this incident. And especially the response time for campus security to address these issues. How is management dealing with this in the long term?
Well, so in the immediate term, we are getting the support of the police to keep the peace. But let's be clear. I think the media needs to be clear. We cannot be condoning indiscipline and violence on a university campus. You cannot run a university that way. There are procedures. If Commonwealth Hall students or the Commonwealth Hall itself is not happy with the decisions, the approach is not to start a riot. And if the media is not condemning this and condoning it and trying to sort of justify their action, I think.
Well, Prof, I'm not sure we are condoning and justifying. It happens, we report. This is the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM. Let's do some other stories now. A pregnant mother and her children have died after fire gutted their home on Ohim, at Ohim in Kumasi Monday night. The mother and the children actually were trapped in their rooms. The child remains of Philomena Osei and her two boys have since been deposited at the morgue at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital. Residents say the fire in the 3-bedroom house is the third time and some suspect arson. The team of police, fire and NADMO officials who visited the scene are yet to establish the cause of the fire as preliminary investigations get underway. The Ashanti Regional Fire Commander ACFO Henry Giwa is advising people to make alternative exit points to escape fire incidents.
Almost 1 a.m. this morning, we had a distress call. A fire tender was dispatched from Konfanochi. Upon reaching here, they realized virtually all the building has been engulfed in fire. So they realized the enormity of the fire and realized they can't even use one tender alone to fight the fire. So they quickly relayed for assistance. And Bremen Fire Station was also dispatched to the scene. So they were able to manage the fire. But upon fighting the fire, they were informed or they realized that a mother and 2 children had perished. So we quickly also have to call the police to come and also take the body for autopsy and preservation. So that is what happens.
Let's speak to Emmanuel Bright quickly. He was at the scene of the fire and joins us live. Emmanuel, describe to us what you have seen and what more information you have.
All right. So, Ernest, it's been a sad day for residents and even the family of the deceased at Oshun. According to the residents, they are saying that the fire started about 11:30 p.m. with the mother and the 2 boys trapped inside the house. However, the first daughter of the mother was in another room, so she tried she escaped from the fire. But according to her, she tried saving her mother and then her sister. But because the fire was intense, the security door or the door to their room was so hot that she didn't open the door, which ultimately led to her mother and then brothers dying. And then according to the husband who decided to speak off record, he told us particularly that about 4 months ago, there was an attempt by some unknown person. They tried burning the bedroom side of the house, which even set ablaze the curtain in. And then because of that, they had to plaster the window and the...
Well, that's Emmanuel Bright-Kweku there, giving us some more information on this unfortunate incident. We'll bring you details in our subsequent bulletins. Now, the former Gender, Children and Social Protection Minister, Sarah Adjei-Safo, has come out for the first time since she was removed by the president from office. The president's decision followed months of her absence in the country due to what she claims was family emergencies. The MP was also accused of holding government to ransom and her party in her absence because that weakened the strength of the party in parliament to pass key government policies. This afternoon, Joy News has secured a letter written by the former minister to the president responding to his decision. My colleague Joseph Akable joins me in the studio with details of that letter. Joseph, let's start with the very first paragraphs where it talks about appreciation to the president.
That part reads, I acknowledge your letter dated 28 July 2022 and would like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to serve as Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection. On Friday, 29 July 2022, I handed over all official assets to the administrator of the ministry. It is with profound gratitude that I express my utmost appreciation to you for the opportunity to serve as minister in the time of your government.
And the very final paragraphs of this letter talks about her parliamentary duties. We know that before Parliament rose, Parliament was expected to take a decision on whether or not to declare her seat vacant. Now she goes on to talk about what this decision will do for her work as an MP.
In fact, she makes the point that she has about 75,000 constituents who elected her, and that this development is an opportunity that will afford her more time to concentrate on parliamentary responsibilities and constituency engagement, as well as consolidate the gains made as a government at the constituency level in the quest to break the 8.
And the full letter will be published on myjoyonline.com. Let's focus now on our living standard series. There's an emerging trend of developers opting to buy lower grades of cement or reducing the required ratio for casting concrete or other ancillary jobs. A bag of that product was sold at an average of 50 cedis just 8 months ago now sells at 62 Ghana cedis. For our latest edition of the Joy Living Standard series, my colleague Manu has been finding out how this is affecting the quality of buildings.
Laborers busy shoveling mixed mortar into a block molding machine. The price of a major component of the mixture, cement, has been on the ascendancy for the major part of 2022, having increased by a combined average of about 20 Ghana cedis in just 7 months. Another major price review is in the offing. Producers, wholesalers and retailers of cement and their customers are all not happy.
We used to sell the bags at 38 or 36 cedis. 3 months ago, the prices began to rise.
That is Emmanuel Tedifori. He has been the lone salesman at his father's cement shop since 2017. He notes how the rapid changes in the price of the product are affecting the business.
You see, these people just came here and are leaving because they cannot afford it. The cement bags can lie here until they begin hardening. The 32.5 R can be used for plastering, screeding and other soft jobs, while the 42.5 R is used for casting concrete and doing other heavy jobs. But people have begun using 32.5 R for jobs meant for 42.5 R.
The concerns of lowering standards due to the high cost of cement are corroborated by Executive Secretary of the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, Samuel Amagaibo.
Several people have put a hold on their project because they just can't cement. It's a very crucial one. Every cement, we have a ratio, and cement must be mixed with a portion of sand and a portion of stone. How many people will not be affected by this price issue, and so will end up reducing the quantity of cement in their products? You can be sure that people are cutting corners.
To adhere to the building code and also be able to survive in the business, estate developers are indexing their price codes against the dollar.
January, you are buying the cement at 40 cedis. March, you are buying it at 48. June, you are buying it at 60. Now we are hearing that we are going to 68. We used to have billboards that had these dollar prices. I'm sure these days you find it difficult to find. But practically in my office, if you call me and ask me about my dollar is on my table. If you call me and ask me a price of a unit, I'll quickly multiply the dollar index on my table as against the exchange rate and tell you. That is today. If you are not able to, you are not proactive to seal it off today, and you come tomorrow, I'll have to call you a new price based on the exchange rate at that moment.
This directly contravenes the Bank of Ghana's regulation on quoting prices in dollars. Dollarization of the economy exerts pressure on the city, contributing to further weakening of the local currency and driving inflation. What will it take to end this trend?
Every morning you wake up, it's about increments. One bad news or the other about businesses. What is that? Government just, I don't know what they're actually doing anyway. It's like they are just relaxed. Cement has tax components. If you cannot do anything to the international market, the tax is yours. You fix the tax within the country. What have you done about the taxes that you slap on this material that are imported?
That's for our Living Standard series. But as it gets tougher, musician Miss V says, take this song and let it calm your temper.
People are really going through it. So this is a song that says shedding type of thing. It just gives you hope that you will make that money. Just keep going.
Make you no worry about the things you know we change, the things you know we do today.
We'll hear from Miss V, who's released the winner song after the break.
Tomorrow go better. Sister, brother, groove make you bend down.
Thanks for staying with us here on the Midday News on Joy99.7 FM with me, Ernest. Time now for sports, and Razak Musbao is here with the latest.
Yes, Ernest, Asamoah has been speaking, and guess what? The former Black Stars captain, Asamoah, is eyeing a return to the Black Stars ahead of the 2022 World Cup. Jan, who last featured for the national team in 2019, believes he has a score to settle with Uruguay in Qatar after the heartbreak of 2010.
Ghanaians want revenge.
Is it the prospect of playing Uruguay that's really pushing you? Is that a huge motivation for you, the fact that you could play Uruguay again at the World Cup?
Ghanaians, it's Ghanaian motivation. I've been in the game for a long time. People outside know what they know what happened. The whole world knows what happened. When the draw was made and then they saw Uruguay in Ghana's group, the only thing that came in mind was revenge. That is, and it's a normal thing. Ghanaians want revenge, and personally, I just sat back and then I just smiled, because I understand how the game goes. Things happen. What happened in 2010 is behind me. Maybe there might be another opportunity, and when the time comes and I'm part of the team and we play against Uruguay, you might never know what is going to happen. We just have to be ourselves. And obviously, I'm human. I have that back of my mind that maybe if I get another chance, I can be able to prove myself.
Well, former captain Asamoah there, and I don't know, would you
I
love?
When I saw it, I thought it was fake news.
Would you love to see Asamoah in the Black Stars in
I'm not sure, but definitely, he brings some motivation to the team. His presence does some magic. But playing on the field, I don't know.
Well, let's hear from you. Go to our social media handles and let's hear from you on that. But for more sports, head to myjoyonline.com/sports.
Thank you very much, Razak, for bringing us the latest in sport. And Joy News is learning that government's decision to absorb grants and loans lent to the utility companies influenced the latest tariff adjustment announced by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. The electricity company and the Ghana Water Company both demanded over 100% adjustment but got 27 and 21%. The decision, according to the PRC, was as a result of government's decision to take care of most of its capital expenditure. Listen to the Director of Research the Public Affairs the Commission, Dr. Kofi Obute.
Now, the Commission took into consideration the fact that the OPEX, which is the operational expenses, granted all the operational expenses to the utilities so that they will not say they don't have money to run the day-to-day activities. So fuel and lubricants, salaries, all those ones were given for free. Were given to them fully as to how they give it the proposed in the tariff. It was given to them. Now the capex, there are three parts of the capex. There's a capital expenditure. The first part is to do with the government grants that has been given to the utilities. That's grants we took out of the tariff. We didn't add grants to it. Then came in the government funding. They said they have government on-lend loans. Now the on-lend loans, government said it has expected them to pay back the on-lend loans.
So that's a Director of Research and Corporate Affairs at the PRC, Dr. Kofi Obute. So what are the debt levels and have the utility companies been paying dividends to the shareholders, which is government? My colleague Kofi Ajay, who is a data analyst with the research desk, joins me on the phone with some more detail. Kofi, let's start with the ECG. What is the debt level there?
Right. So one simple way of determining if a company has the fiscal space to settle its debt is by computing what we call the current ratio, which is more when it's more than one, we say the country is actually in debt distress, and it's more or less like computing debt to GDP for countries. So for ECG, their current ratio is pegged at 0.62, which shows an improvement from the 0.49 recorded in 2019. The data indicates ECG may still have liquidity issues in settling their debt, since its debt burden has risen from 12.9 billion in 2018 to now 22.3 billion in 2020.
But how about the Ghana Water Company and the VRA?
Well, Ghana Water Company's current ratio is pegged at 0.59, which makes it worse than that of ECG, and it could be why they requested for the highest upward adjustment of 334%. And in fact, their debt burden has risen from 2.2 billion in 2018 to now 6.1 billion in 2020. For VRA, current ratio was above 1.15 and relatively better, but its debt burden has also increased from 7.4 billion in 2018 to now 9.5 billion in 2020.
Kofi, thank you very much for bringing us those details. Let's hear from the Ghana Statistical Service that says that the current inflation, utility tariff, the hikes would further push inflation. Let's hear from John Foster Achaho.
We at Statistical Service, we always keep our eyes on the three top major elements in the basket. These are food and non-alcoholic beverages, electricity, water, gas, and other fuel, and then transport. And interestingly, today we are aware of the rate that has been given. And if all the other variables in the basket even remain constant, we will certainly see some appreciable increases.
That's the Ghana Statistical Service Head of Pricing, Mr. Jahoda, speaking to Joy News. And that's how we end the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM. We leave you with this song from Miss V. It's called A Winner. Enjoy.
Make you no worry about the things you know we change, the things you know we do today, you go do them tomorrow.
Today, in our current economic state, it's not looking pretty for, in fact, everybody. People are really going through it. So this is a song that says shedding type of thing. It just gives you hope that you will make that money. Just keep going. So it's the anthem of the season. It's for this season, yes. you are holding on to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You should be putting things in place, and that's where not giving up comes in.
Isn't life wonderful when everything worth doing is scheduled? Hitting the stop button on your alarm just in time for your morning jog. That's happy moments listening to your baby's heartbeat at the doctor's office. Or an arranged virtual meeting with that big client.
Buy airtime ahead of time with scheduled airtime service on MTN Momo. You can schedule your airtime purchase of any amount daily, weekly, or monthly by dialing *170# option 3 and follow the process. Or simply dial *170*311# for a superb airtime purchase experience. You enjoy 100% bonus airtime anytime you recharge yourself with MTN Momo. Keep on talking with that 100% feeling. So, what are we doing today?
MTN.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Bringing hope to many around the globe, transforming lives into legacies. Living Word with Pastor Mensa Otabil. And now, today's word.
When God makes your feet like the deer, you don't only have speed, you have stability. You can twist, you can turn, you can jump, but you would not fall. And David could relate to that. There were many twists and turns in his life. Many times he had to change direction without notice. All of a sudden he hears, Saul is coming against you. All of a sudden he hears, if you sleep here tonight, you are dead. But in those moments, he turned, he twisted, he moved, and he was always stable. He never moved from that into a bigger trap. Anytime he moved, he was stable, he was secure, and he could move on. When God makes your feet like the feet of the deer, he gives you speed and he gives you stability. You don't fall from frying pan to fire. You don't fall from one trouble to the other. But when you twist and turn, he gives you stability. You can have that stability. In the second part of the verse 33, David says, he sets me on my high places. I love that. God raises me up to new heights. He sets me on my high places. David saw the twists and the turns of his life as the means through which God was promoting him. Every time he faced an enemy or an attack, God used it to promote him to a higher level. Every battle he fought allowed him to capture a new strategic position. God setting you on high. The twists and turns of life are not diverting your direction and attention, they are setting you on high. When you see your life moving in zigzags, sometimes you may not see progress. But David saw the zigzags of his life as God setting him on high. From the day he was anointed at the age of 17 until the day he was fully acknowledged as king when he was 30, for 13 years, his whole life was running. Twist, turns, move here, move there. Enemy on one side, enemies within, enemies without. And yet he said, as God helped me along this way, he was setting me on high. He never saw the twists and turns of his life as taking him backwards. He saw it as setting him on high. You know, many times when we face the twists and turns of life, we think our lives are not moving anywhere. We're not achieving anything. Nothing is happening in my life. I'm just running. Enemies. But David says, in the midst of all of that, God set me on my high places. Isn't that wonderful? To know that in the midst of all the turns of life and all the twists of life, God is setting you up in new heights. When God sets you on high, it means that He's also positioning you in the right place. God positions you in the right place. God's promotion is never wrong. When God promotes you, He positions you in the right place. And so for David, every turn of his life positioned him in the right place. Now, the right place does not mean no more battle. Now, we would wish that when God puts us in the right place, it means that, no enemy. But sometimes the right place will be straight in front of Goliath. That's your promotion, and it landed you right in front of Goliath. It's the right place. Sometimes the right place is in the palace of Saul, where you have a crazy king, an insecure king who wants to kill you, who loves you and hates you at the same time and wants to kill you. But it's the right place. It's the right place. God's right place is not a problem-free place. God's one right place sometimes will be right in the battlefield, right in front of another battle. But that is the right place. The right place in life is not where you want to be. The right place in life is where God places you. And if He puts you in the battlefield, it's the right place. If you wake up one morning and you find, Goliath, it's the right place if God puts you there. If God puts you there, Goliath may shout, may taunt, may threaten, but that's the best he can do, because you're going to get his head off his shoulders and God is going to give you victory. He sets me on my high places. God puts me in the right place. When God puts us, is setting us on the right place, He lifts us up one step at a time. One step at a time. God knew what He wanted to do with David's life. When He sent Samuel to go to the house of Jesse in Bethlehem and anoint one of the sons of Jesse as king, God knew what He wanted to do with David. He knew the guy was king. He was king material. When Samuel poured the oil on him, He didn't anoint him to be a hustler. He didn't anoint him to be a runaway boy. He didn't anoint him to be a refugee. He anointed him to be king. But it took him 13 years to be king. Because many times we think when God calls us for something, anoints us for something, equips us for something, we will be it instantly. But God is going to lead you one step at a time, one promotion at a time. And He's going to take you to face battles right in front of you. One moment, you're fighting in the wilderness. Next moment, you're fighting Goliath. Next moment, you're fighting in the palace. Next moment, you're fighting in the wilderness. Next moment, you are fighting people in your own house. But each battle takes you higher and higher and higher and shows God to you in ways you have never known. Some of us know God as the one who wins battles in the valleys, but He also wants you to know He can win battles on the mountaintop. And He wants you to know He can win battles in your home, and He can win battles in the office. So He's going to create a lot of battles around you, just for Him to show you, I can win here, and I can win there, and I can win there, and I can win here also. God is not afraid of your enemies, by the way, but He's going to lead you one step at a time. In verse 34, David says, he teaches my hands to make war, so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. He teaches my hands to make war. The Lord teaches me how to fight. God teaches me how to fight. That's a very important lesson. How to fight. How to fight. May God teach us how to fight. David had no battle experience when he faced Goliath in battle. Yet he says the Lord trained his hands for war. So, but at the time he met Goliath, he was not in the army. He was not in the military. But he says, God trained me for that moment. The Lord trained my hand for war. How did God train a man who had never fought to fight? When did God train David for war? And how did God train David? God trained David without David knowing he was being trained. He had no clue he was in training school. One day his father said to him, Dave, the servants are on strike, and the sheep are in the wilderness, and your older brothers don't want to watch sheep. The girls will laugh at them in the village. So you're the little boy, go to the forest, go to the wilderness, go take care of the sheep. Look like banishment. So he goes to the wilderness alone, and he's taking care of his family's sheep. Taking care of sheep is not exciting because you can't converse with sheep. You can't discuss politics with them. You can't read a newspaper to them. So it's a boring task. And many times the sheep are just walking lazily, just eating grass, lying down, sleeping, waking, doing other stuff. And that's all David was watching. It's boring. So whilst it was boring, he started to use his time. So he would take his slingshot and put a stone in it and throw the stone. And take the stone, put it on his sling and throw it, and throw it, and throw it, and throw it. Pretty soon he realized, I'm really good at this thing. So he continues throwing stones and throwing stones and throwing stones and sharpening throwing of stones and sharpening throwing of stones. And he has no idea that he was being trained. He didn't know. This is God's training school, giving me a boring job, putting me in an office I don't like, giving me a job I hate. It's my training. You think God is going to train you by taking you to university? Anybody can go to university. Anybody can go to school. God's training is with life skills. He's a life trainer. He's going to put you in life situations, and that's how he trains you. And sometimes he's going to put you in places you don't like, but that's your training ground. May I please suggest to some of you, you are now under training. You don't like your boss? Welcome to Training 101. Your job is boring? Welcome to training. This is God's training school. And David had no clue. And he's just throwing stones and throwing stones and throwing stones. And God is going to train each one of us. The thing about training is you can run away from training school. Or you can decide not to learn in training school. But if you learn, the next thing happens after. When God is training you, he will test your strength. He will test your strength. After God has trained you, he will test you. He will place a task before you that draws on what you've learned. And the test will not come announced. God's test does not come announced. There's no exam week. God does not come and say, well, my son, this week is exam week. Prepare for geography and learn about the semi-deciduous forest. No, that's not how God announces exam. You're just there and the test starts. So David is throwing stones one day, throwing, and he doesn't even know why he's throwing stones. He thinks, yes, I'm just whiling away the time. And test comes. A lion shows up, picks one of his sheep, begins to run. And David picks a stone, puts it in his sling, shoom, 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 whack, and hits the lion. Test passed. Now, David could have said, well, it's okay. There are more sheep here. But instantly, something in him connected to what he had been working on all his life. And somehow he noticed that the skill he had developed, which he thought was useless, was for this purpose. And he passes the test. Many times you never value the test God takes you through until after. Sometimes it takes you 10 years. You look back and say, thank God I learned that. And places you hate becomes the places you love most. People you hated all your life, all of a sudden you love them because 20 years from now you look back and say,